Good morning. You're listening to Retake Our Democracy, a 30-minute weekly show that airs at 8:30 a.m. each Saturday morning on KSFR 101.1 FM, your Santa Fe public radio station. And I'm Paul Gibson, the host of Retake Our Democracy. Today I'm speaking with Eric Olivas. He's the candidate for the Bernalillo County Commission in District 5. We'll get to Eric after a few short announcements. Before we get started, I want to acknowledge that we are conducting this show on stolen Tewa land and to thank our Tewa neighbors for being such good stewards of that land. I also want to remind you that for the past month, Retake on the Radio has been focusing on Democratic candidates for the New Mexico State House of Representatives. And so last week I spoke with Andrea Romero, House Representative for District 46. The week prior, I spoke with Susan Herrera, House Rep for District 41. And our conversation with Cristina Ortez next week will complete the series that brought us Renus Sapansky, Roger Montoya, Susan Herrera, Andrea Romero, and our closings in the series on Cristina Ortez. So today we're taking a break from the legislature and talking with a good progressive candidate for the Bernalillo County Commission. If you're driving around and miss any of today's show, you can watch the full YouTube recording of this show and any prior show, including all of the interviews with our legislators, by going to retakeourdemocracy.org, clicking on the Retake on the Radio button on the right side of the homepage, and you'll find the YouTube recordings there all our previous shows. With the 2022 regular and special sessions now over, Retake is shifting focus to the primary election. As part of that work, we are identifying races where either solid incumbents are being challenged by moderate or conservative Dems, or where an incumbent Dem is being challenged by a more progressive one. We will be announcing the list of races on which we are focusing very soon. As part of our election work, we just held a candidate forum with both Democratic candidates for New Mexico State Auditor. It was a stirring discussion with candidates not seeing the questions in advance of the forum, so the answers couldn't be carefully crafted ahead of time. So you got a more unvarnished view of both candidates. You can view that debate by going to retakeourdemocracy.org and clicking on the Actions and Events menu in the menu bar, and the recording is near the top of that page. Retake is also getting ready for the interim hearings, which will begin soon. Retake is working with allies to support their interim hearing strategies, conducting supportive research, and initiating dialogue with key legislators on the issues Retake is focusing on in 2022-23. Stay tuned, as there will be actions you can take in both the primaries and the interim hearings. If you want to keep current on the interim hearings and for election-related actions, you should go to Retake's Action Alerts by going to retakeourdemocracy.org and click on Get Action Alerts. The buttons on the right side of the homepage. During the legislative sessions, you would get daily alerts about bills we're supporting and when they're being heard in committees and how you can weigh in either in person or from your home. We also include with that a bill summary, speaking points, and contact information for your legislature. Part of what Retake is all about is to try and make it easier for you to make informed advocacy a part of your daily life. And the alerts are an important part of that. We'll also be initiating a range of proactive strategies to prepare for the 2023 legislative session. This work will include working closely with key allies and legislators to cultivate interest, understanding, and support for bills or issues we support. This work will include presenting at interim hearings and meeting with legislators individually or in small groups with their constituents. If you want to get involved in our advocacy work and help us frame and advance these strategies, please join our monthly huddle on Zoom, the second Wednesday of each month from 6 to 7:30. We just held our April huddle. So next up will be Wednesday, May 4th. I'm not making a mistake. That is the first Wednesday of the month. But Roxanne and I will be in California the following week to attend our daughter's graduation from med school. Yay. But so we'll be doing it on May 4th this month. Let's see. You can get more information about the huddle by going to Retake Our Democracy and clicking on the Actions and Events menu And in that menu, on that page, when you click there, you'll find information about the huddle and a link to register. You must register to participate. The huddles are a great way to learn the ins and outs of the legislature and how you can make a difference. And we also do try every single month to have one or two experts on, and we have a group discussion of an issue of great importance. Last week, it was about climate change and advocacy in New Mexico on climate change. Enough announcements. Let's talk to Eric. Welcome, Eric. Thanks for making time for this conversation.
Thanks for having me on today, Paul. I really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to talking with you.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to talking to you too, because we don't do that much about Bernalillo County Commission. We should do more. I always like to let our guests introduce themselves. So how about we start by your telling us a bit about yourself, how you landed in Bernalillo County, and how you got involved in policy and politics in general, and how that led you to run for Bernalillo County Commission.
I'd love to share my story with you. I'm an Albuquerque native. I was born and raised in the Quigley Park area, which is just outside of uptown Albuquerque. So I didn't really have much say in my placement here in Bernalillo County, but I love it here. It's a beautiful place. I love New Mexico, and I love my home. Albuquerque is home and always will be home for me. I'm the son of two school teachers. They were both APS teachers, and I went to APS schools. I graduated right up the street from my house from Sandia High School, and I married a school teacher as well. So I've got a lot of connections to the education world here in Albuquerque and Bernalillo County. And you know, I've grown up here. I also attended UNM, where I got a bachelor's degree in chemistry and in biology. And I went on to get a master's degree in biology. My thesis project really focused on the effects of drought and climate change on piñon pine, the state tree of New Mexico. So pretty relevant for what we're seeing going on, and a very interesting project. I wasn't thrilled with the research environment, but I loved being outdoors. And so since I was a kid, actually in high school, or even before that, I was mowing lawns as kids do to kind of earn money. And all through college, I supported myself growing that business, and I've continued to do that. My wife supported me in that, and I've opened, since then, I've operated my small business, landscaping, and we've expanded into plumbing work as well related to that. I've got 5 employees. I'm extremely proud of the work that we do and what I do for the community through that business and through my employees. I'm really proud to say that I think I'm a true pro worker, small business person. I know that's sometimes an oxymoron to say those in the same sentence, but
when you're in legislative hearings, it's an oxymoron for sure.
To many folks it is, and I try to be the different strain, and so that's part of what got me involved in politics. I've seen the way that workers can be treated very poorly, and I learned very quickly in my own business that doesn't work for the business itself, and it's just you don't sleep at night when you're paying people starvation wages. It doesn't work very well, and you end up being the training ground for other companies and for people to move on to better things. So I've always paid my people decent wages, and I got involved with the sick leave debate when that was going through the Albuquerque City Council, and I was a big supporter of that because I felt it was the right thing to do, and it also led to healthier, happier employees that were more productive, worked harder, more efficiently. And so that got me involved a little bit with looking at what the county commission did with that. And my opponent was not a Democrat on that. I mean, I'm a lifelong Democrat. I have yet to say that, but I think that we all kind of stand for a certain set of core values. And it was very clear to me that there's a number of Democrats on that commission that don't share those values, but they call themselves Democrats. So that was problematic for me. And then the second side of how I got involved is I've been very involved in the Community Policing Council, and I was also appointed from there to the Police Oversight Board in Albuquerque, where I served for a couple of years, including a year as chair. And we certainly hear a lot in Albuquerque and all over the state about crime problems and interplay with that and behavioral health. And in my time on those boards, I really got a firsthand view of what's going on and where a lot of the hangups are. And I think that we just don't have a lot of leadership on that commission. And we need a strong Bernalillo County Commission with strong Democrats that are going to lead with their values. And so that's why I got involved, because this is my community, this is my home. It's given me a lot of opportunity and a lot of um, personal growth, and I want to expand that and make sure that that's available for everyone.
That's great. So before we dive into discussion of the issues, can you tell our listeners a bit about District 5 and the issues most important to voters in that district? What are the boundaries sort of to that district?
So District 5 is an interesting place. All of these commission districts are very large. There are about 150,000 people in each district. So relative to legislative seats, they're enormous. This district runs roughly on the north end of Albuquerque to Spain Road, down to the west boundary is San Mateo, and on the south side it's I-40. And as you get up closer to the mountain, this starts looking more like a triangle shaped district. At about Wantabo, we go out to the Air Force Base. It has 4 hills. And then this is where it gets really crazy. It includes everything on the east side of the Sandias, including the National Forest, the village of Tijeras, Carnuel, Chilili, you name it on the east side, it's in District 5. So it's a really diverse district. It's got these some of the most rural and most beautiful places in Bernalillo County. And it's got the urban core. It's got Uptown, which is probably the largest gross receipts generator, the largest property tax base in the entire state. So it's very diverse. There's a big urban rural divide there on the east side of the mountains. There's a lot of talk and interest in water issues, drought, fire, broadband and roads, snow plows, stuff like that, basic government services that they need and that the county supports. And of course, on the west side of the mountains, it's a somewhat different series of issues going on, whether you're talking about crime and behavioral health issues, substance abuse. Of course, we talk about economic growth and development with that big economic engine in that area. So it's a really diverse district. But what I like to tell people that might be listening that don't live there and say, what does this matter to me, right? Like this is this one district in Bernalillo County. This is the largest county in the state by population. It's also the largest Democratic county in the state. And so what we do here really does matter. I mean, this sets the pace for the entire state, maybe the entire region. And right now we've got a 4-to-1 majority on the Democratic, on the county commission of Democrats. And you think about that and you say, wow, that's awesome. We've got a strong majority there. Seems durable. We ought to be doing really great things. But when you look at the legislation that's coming out of this commission or not coming out of it, it doesn't look like a Democratic county commission. It's actually a 3-to-2 conservative majority. And that's partly because of my opponent. I'm challenging a very conservative Democrat that's been very bad on a lot of issues that I think as Democrats we look at and think this is a no-brainer. So I mentioned sick leave. She was on the wrong side of that for workers and businesses, I would add. I think it's a good policy for businesses. She's been on the wrong side of unions. She fought against project labor agreements. She's been very inconsistent about the Santolina project. She'll tell some people that she doesn't support it, but then she'll vote to move the project forward. She recently voted to rezone the property and allow them to move forward with some big changes. And then lastly, she voted to put a Republican in charge of the commission when this was a 4-to-1 Democratic county commission. So very inconsistent. I really hesitate to call her a Democrat. And that's a big part of why I'm running, and a big part of why people all over the state should be interested in this and supporting me in any way that you can.
And I think there's another, that you would flip the switch from 4-to-1, it would stay 4-to-1, but it would be 3-to-2 progressive versus conservative, correct?
Correct. And we've got another race here in Bernalillo County that I think is worth highlighting as well. There's another open seat that Debbie O'Malley is leaving. She's been a really strong voice for workers and the environment. She'll be leaving her seat for term limits. And so there's another race out there between Barbara Baca and Aaron Muffletta. And I think it's really important that Democrats all over the state pay attention to that race as well as my race, because we have a chance, as you say, if Barbara and I are both elected to the commission, to have a durable 3-to-2 majority on the commission.
And thankfully, that would be bad news for Santolina. We'll get to that in just a minute. I took a brief tour of your campaign website and saw that you identified 3 key issues you feel are important to your constituents. let's spend a little bit of time going over those issues. Let's start with you. Have a comprehensive approach to public safety and homelessness. Can you describe what the commission has been doing to address public safety and homelessness issues, and then describe your plan and why it is well suited to the conditions in Bernalillo County?
So I think, anybody that's following what's going on in the metro area knows that people are frustrated with crime. And of course, there's some of that I think is a narrative that's being presented by certain forces, but crime is real. I mean, I don't deny that there is a crime problem in Albuquerque. There's a crime problem in New Mexico. And really the county commission and my opponent have been asleep at the wheel here. We've got serious issues. Substance abuse is just running roughshod through this city. I've done a lot of work with police. I've done a lot of police ride-alongs, and I've seen firsthand what they're dealing with. And in my own work, oddly enough, as a landscaper, we spend a lot of time working for some pretty large national retailers, working in their parking lots and in their landscaping. And you would be amazed at the things we see, the fights, knifings, homelessness, substance abuse, all kinds of things going on in plain daylight and plain sight. And it's dangerous for those individuals. It's sad oftentimes, and it's dangerous for our community. There's issues there that are happening on a daily basis, and we're not seeing movement by the county commission to do anything serious about this. So I think we've got to increase cooperation between the sheriff's department and APD. We also have an opportunity to elect a new sheriff that I think we can really change the paradigm on policing in Bernalillo County if we have the sheriff and the Albuquerque Police Department working in the same direction and working by the same rules. So that's an important race to keep in mind as well. But on the behavioral health component, there's a big component of crime, and especially more petty crime in Albuquerque that's related to that, whether it's substance abuse or homelessness, mental health issues. And the county commission is moving very slowly to address those issues. And there's a gap report out actually that outlines a series of steps that the county needs to take to streamline efforts and improve care. And we're not seeing the county commission really address that at all. The biggest component is the fact that none of the entities in the metro area are coordinating with each other. The city's doing one thing, the county's doing another, the state's doing another, and they're not talking to each other. And we've got to get a centralized clearinghouse for a plan and money to all be together and all be working in the same direction, so we're not fighting each other and competing with each other. And so I liken this to the water authority that we have here in Albuquerque. That's a pretty good governmental agency and a good example of how the county and the city can cooperate. We need that kind of effort. And my opponent just hasn't addressed that. There've been a lot of opportunities to do that, but I think it's telling that I have elected officials across the spectrum, whether you talk about Debbie O'Malley or former Commissioner Jim Cawley, that are both county commissioners that have endorsed me. I have city councilors like Tammy Fugel-Corn and Pat Davis that have endorsed me. And I have state legislators like Senator Mimi Stewart or Representative Christine Trujillo that have endorsed me and are supporting me. And the thing that I've heard from all of them is that my opponent has just been absent from conversations and absent from a real effort to coordinate and build that trust in that relationship. So that's really what I think is one of the most important components of fighting this.
Okay. So what life or professional experience informs your views on public safety and homelessness?
So I think I kind of alluded to that briefly, but as I said, I've served on the community policing councils, and I've also served on the police oversight board, where I got to see a lot of different views. I've seen complaints about police. I've seen the environment that police have to operate in, or in this case, sheriff's deputies have to operate in. I've been out to homeless encampments when I've been on ride-alongs. I've talked to people that are in crisis or watched police deal with people in crisis. And as I said, my own business, and just, we all know that place in our neighborhood where we see these things going on. I was just at a store site the other day where they had lit a fire behind the store, probably to stay warm at night, right? That's a very disturbing situation for that individual, but also for that business and that community, thinking about, maybe coming in and your building is burned down or something like that, or somebody lost their life out there. So, it's really a series of lived experience, and also my hands-on volunteer experience working with the police and working with these communities that's shaped my views on this.
I need to take a quick break here to remind our listeners that they're listening to KSFR. And it's at times like this in the age of disinformation and misinformation, it's times like that where KSFR, with their solid base of reporting local and state and national news, their inclusion of Democracy Now, and just prior to Retake Our Democracy's weekly show at 8:30 at 8 a.m. is Richard Wolff, who's the best possible analyst on the impact of capitalism on our economy and on worker justice. And his show is from 8 to 8:30. I warm up with that before you listen to Retake. So if you've got some cash, after you listen to the show, go to ksfr.org, click on the donate button, and send them 10 or 20 bucks and look at that as your ticket to admission for some great programming. Thank you very much for doing that. Let's get back to our conversation with Eric. A second priority on your campaign website is your plan for developing a strong local economy while supporting working people. And you've done a little bit of conversation about that in terms of your business and the importance of paying people well. Can you describe your approach? And as you do, could you contrast your position with that of your opponent?
Yeah, so I think that the most important thing that we've got to keep in mind when we're talking about economic development is that we've really got to focus on building this economy and this community from the ground up. Many of our most serious problems, if you want to go back into the crime debate, we can talk about how that affects economic development, not only directly, but indirectly as people don't have good jobs, people are stuck in these cycles of poverty. Then you get hopelessness, and then you get bad outcomes, right? You get more prevalence of substance abuse and poverty, and those things all go hand in hand. And so building a strong economy from the bottom up is really important. And I think that starts with focusing on respecting workers and working people. You shouldn't have to work 3 jobs to support your family. That's just a basic sign of respect and decency that our society needs to draw, and government needs to be a force for good in that. And it can be a force for good when you don't have weak Democrats that are working against working people, but telling them that they're for them. That's the biggest problem that I see. And I see where working people just get turned off by that and then don't participate in the process or just completely give up because they're not seeing any results. So I think for me, it really goes to starting with that set of core values in mind and then working your way up from there and looking at what supports people. Paid sick leave. Now, the legislature did the right thing and did something good there for working people. The county commission really didn't. They nibbled at the issue and did what was easy, but not what was right.
Could you describe what that is involved in? What was easy that they took instead of what was right?
Yeah, so I mean, the state law really applies to all employers and all employees. And what my opponent did was water down the county paid sick leave ordinance to the point where it really applied only to a handful of companies because the employer cap was so large. And so I think that when government gets involved like that and puts their finger on the scale, that actually hurts smaller businesses and of course hurts workers when those businesses want to do the right thing, like my own, and I go and bid on a government job or a private commercial job, and you're bidding against other bidders that are paying starvation wages and they're not offering those benefits, you're going to lose that bid every time. And so then we get this economy of low wage jobs with no benefits. And so the county needs to be a force for good on that. And there's other ways we can do that as well by looking at things like paying Davis-Bacon wages, prevailing wages on county contracts, making sure that we have strong project labor agreements in force that require county contractors to pay union wages and benefits. They don't have to be union workers, but they need to offer the same benefits. And I also think that apprenticeship programs and other job training programs are really important because we have a real shortage of workers in the trades and other areas like that are actually leading to price increases across the board. And if we can interest more young people in participating in that, you can solve 2 problems. Those are often very well-paying jobs, and it's a field that's in very high demand. So I think my economic development strategy really focuses on that. And then lastly, we've got to reform the county's economic development incentives and the way that we offer things to businesses. We really need to focus on businesses that are capitalizing on our unique traits as a community. I mean, this is a place that I love, and there's so many inspiring things going on here, whether it's our creative community or some of our innovation in technology and other areas like that. But we're investing in sort of industries that maybe have been. And so we've got to really start trying to be ourselves and not try to be the next San Francisco or the next Seattle. Those are great places, but they're great in their own right. And we've got to start being proud of who we are as a city and build on our strengths instead of trying to chase the ship that's already sailed.
So sadly, we're almost out of time for the radio show. So can you close out the show by telling us a little bit about where people can find out more about your campaign and how they can support that campaign?
So like I said at the beginning of the show, this is a really important commission race. There's only 5 seats on this board, and we really need to have strong Democrats on here, and I need support. I'm running against an incumbent Democrat that's probably going to be supported by a lot of very conservative forces that want to keep things the same. And so please go to my website. My website is Olivas, Olivas, for Bernco, Bernco. So olivasforbernco.com. You can find out a lot more about me, my background, my priorities once I get elected. And of course, the all-important thing that we need is contributions. This is an expensive race. Unfortunately, it's not publicly financed. And so we have to do private financing. And whether you live in this district or not, this is important for so many issues, whether it's workers' rights, crime and behavioral health, and of course, the environment. So your investment in this race really is an investment in good government and in good democratic policy on those issues.
Do you have a canvassing campaign or a phone or texting campaign that people can plug into?
We do. There's also an area there on the website that'll allow you to plug into our volunteer base and get on our newsletter and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So if you want to help out that way as well, there's lots of ways to help out.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Eric. And we're going to close the show here. We'll be back next week with either Amber Wallen, the Executive Director for Voices for Children, and we'll be talking about guaranteed basic income and 2 of the pilot projects underway in New Mexico. But before we air that show with Amber, we may squeeze in a couple more shows with good Dems running for legislative positions, including Cristina Ortez. I think that might actually be next week. But whatever, 8:30 Saturday morning, KSFR 101.1 FM, or streaming live from ksfr.org, and whatever, we'll have something really good going on. So check it out, and we'll be back next week. But thank you, Eric, and we're going to take a little pause here, and then we're going to go and get to the podcast on YouTube. So there'll be more with Eric in just in a minute. Okay, we're back with Eric. 28 minutes and 14 seconds. Perfect. All right, so we were talking about your policies, and I had mentioned that that you had 3 priorities, and we talked about 2, but we haven't talked about natural resources, and that's another one of your priorities. Could you talk a little bit about why that's a priority and what are some of the policies you might support in that area?
Sure. Well, like I said, I lead this off with the fact that I consider myself a scientist. I may not be a practicing biologist anymore, but I still do a lot of it in my landscaping work, whether it's identifying plants or looking at issues with water. And I think this is one of the greatest strengths we have as a community is our natural environment. So many people come here from other states and other countries and look at the environment we have. We have these beautiful foothills and huge mountains. We've got a gorgeous Rio Grande Bosque. We've got the volcanoes out on the West Mesa. We just have so much diversity in open space and land, available land and water, clean air. This is probably our greatest resource, I would say. And it's also an economic driver. People come here to enjoy the natural spaces we have. So it's important that we protect those and market those carefully in a way that it grows and empowers our community instead of using and abusing those spaces. So I think the county plays a big role in that, whether it's through zoning policies and economic development that encourages different types of development. I think I'm not 100% anti-development, but I'm anti-bad idea. And so I think you can look at some of the development projects that have happened in Bernalillo County, and there's some real shining examples of places where we respected the community and we got input from the community and we did really good things that have benefited the community. Infill projects like the Sawmill project, or even the Windrock development that's up in my neighborhood. Those are really good examples of how development can be a force for good and do something that's really beneficial. But then I think you look at other areas where the county and the city have really encouraged things that degrade the natural environment and lead to further serious consequences, whether you talk about climate change or increased pollution and transportation costs. Building sprawling developments way out on the West Mesa is pretty bad policy when you look at it from the sense of transportation, climate, and then of course the all-important issue of water. I mean, we live in a very dry state to begin with, even in absence of climate change, which we know is just hammering our ability to provide water resources. So we've got to be cognizant of that, and we've got to use the authority that we have as a county and the resources that we have, such as the Water Authority Board, to make sure that we steward those resources well. The Rio Grande is vastly over appropriated. The water that we're saying is in it is not there, and it never will be there. And so we're really relying on numbers that don't exist to permit new developments and changes to our water use. And I think we have a lot to be proud of in our water use. So we've cut water use in the metro area, but it's important that we don't use those savings to encourage bad ideas.
Well, speaking of bad ideas and water, we can't talk about local business development, not talk about Santolina. What is your position on this horrible development? And how does this position differ from that of your opponent?
So I oppose Santolina, full stop. My opponent has been consistently inconsistent on this. And most recently, she voted to allow a zone change on this property that moves the development forward. And so I think that going back to what we talked about before and the importance of strong Democrats on the commission, you just can't have it both ways. You have to stand for something, and there's real scientific facts here that just say we don't have the water for this. I mean, there's a reason that the Cerro Colorado landfill, the biggest landfill in the state, is located just a few miles from the proposed Santolina development. It's because the water table in that area is extremely deep, meaning that drilling wells and that sort of thing out there is really not an option. And so that means that we're going to use existing water resources coming from the west side and the east side and other already over appropriated water resources to supply that development. And so there isn't water for that. And the proposed solutions that the developers have proposed really don't pass muster. I mean, they're talking about retiring agricultural water rights or buying up agricultural water rights. To me, that fundamentally changes part of that character I was talking about, our ecological and natural resource character, the farms that we have in the valley and the water that flows in the river, right? Those are important resources. People come to see those things, but animals and plants and all kinds of wildlife also use those resources. And when we talk about moving those somewhere else, that really causes some concern for me. And I think we need to stop as a community and think about what's important.
So far, we've been focusing on specific policy positions, but what are the values and principles that guide you in determining what policies to support or oppose?
So like I said, I was born here. I grew up in a very average middle-class family and very, very lucky to have what I have. And I've had the access to good public schooling and great university that we have here. And of course, access to the outdoors and all of the other things that we enjoy as citizens of this place. So my values really come from here. My family just instilled values in me of hard work and honesty and basic decency and respect for your fellow man. I don't think that that's anything incredibly unique, but I think it's something that I really lean into as I think about how I want to govern and be part of this county commission board. Is it's important to lead with those values and remember where you came from and remember why I'm doing this and why I'm here. I want to make this community a better place. I think we have so many strengths and there are challenges, but if we lead with those strengths and build on those, I think we can confront the challenges pretty easily and really move into a whole new phase as a community and thrive and grow in a sustainable way.
Okay, well, thank you. It's been a pleasure talking to you and getting to know you. Let's just say you've got 2 minutes now, and this is your chance for your 2-minute campaign speech. Can you lay out why this race is so important and why District 5 voters should vote for you? What's at stake?
What's at stake here is the future of our community. We have a 4-1 county commission, Democrats, but it's a 3-2 conservative majority. And this is our chance as a community to fix that and put a strong Democrat, somebody that will lead with their values and lead with doing what is right for working people, for our environment, and for the most vulnerable in the community. That's who I am. My opponent has very clearly shown that she's not up for this job. She's not in this for the same reasons that I am, and it's been reflected in her voting record and the choices and the policies that she has and hasn't supported. I will not be that person. I will be that strong Democrat that we need and want on this county commission. So whether you live in this district or not, this is an important race. This matters. There's only 5 seats on this commission, and we can do a lot. I would point you to look at the city council in Albuquerque if you want to see what the consequences of allowing a conservative takeover of this body are. You saw them work to roll back project labor agreements. You saw them work to roll back the plastic bag ordinance. I'm sure we'll see lots of other conservative policies move through that body. Luckily, we have a mayor that can help to stop that, but we have a chance to go on offense here if we look at the county commission, and it's really 1 seat that we need. Barbara Baca's seat is important too, District 1 out on the west side. But this is a seat here where we're actually taking out a very conservative Democrat and would be putting in somebody very different from that. I'm a strong Democrat. I'm somebody that will lead with my values, and I hope that you'll consider supporting me. And if you can vote for me, certainly vote for me.
Okay, well, thank you very much for being with us, Eric. We're going to close out even the YouTube show now, and we'll be back next week. I believe we're going to be with, it's really hard to do this, folks. You know, I say who's going to be our guest next week, and then somebody cancels or somebody else comes in who's got, it's very topical and timely. And so I quickly do a show with that person, and then the other show gets bumped back. But I'm recording a show tomorrow with Christina Ortez, House Rep from Taos. And if that happens as planned, that will be on the air next week. If not, I've already recorded a show with Amber Wallen about guaranteed basic income, and that will be the show. So those 2 will be the next 2 shows. So you won't lose out by tuning in at 8:30. And thank you very much for being with us. And if you go to retakeourdemocracy.org and click on Retake on the radio, you can get all of our old shows and interviews with legislators and so forth. But obviously, you know that because if you're listening to the YouTube recording of this show, you got to the website. So thank you all. And last, I always like to close by saying, stay safe, stay healthy, and really stay engaged and active. It's the only way we can fix this mess. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week. And thank you, Eric.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay, I'm going to pause the recording.